Hello and welcome to episode 403 of the No Sugarcoating podcast. I am, of course, your host, Amber Romanian, and I'm so glad you're here. How are you? How is your March going so far? I can't believe spring is hopefully going to be around the corner soon here. We've had lots of snow the last month, but we need it. It's been dry. The farmers are going to need it. How about you, where you are in the world? I'm ready for spring and rain and flowers and nicer weather, that is for sure. Anyways, I'm really excited about today's episode. I haven't talked a lot about this trigger before on the podcast, but it is a very popular one. And I had 3 different conversations in the last week with clients and a potential client about this. So I wanted to spend a whole episode breaking it down. So we're going to be exploring the rebellion emotional eating trigger, how the ego fuels the rebellion trigger, and ways to start building awareness around this trigger for yourself. Because one of the ways that we really start to gain traction to fully overcome emotional eating, binging, and purging is being very aware of the triggers that continue to come in and sneak up on us. And this one can be very sneaky. So we're going to dive into that right away. A couple key announcements, of course. The show notes for today's episode can be found at amberapproved.ca/podcast/403. A couple things I want to talk about. So the first thing is, of course, if you are feeling connected with these conversations and you are wanting to explore potentially going on the journey together to food and body freedom, you want to address your hormone issues, you want to work on balancing your digestion and clearing out the bloat, you want to work on the rebellion trigger and your ego and understand, okay, well, why can't I stop binging or emotionally eating? I want to figure out the triggers, build awareness, and start to interrupt it and clear it out and gain freedom from it, right? Maybe you're wanting to bring all this in and you want to understand why your body's hanging on to weight and why you're struggling to lose it, or you're holding back in your life because you're feeling unworthy and insecure, or maybe you're just so tired of living in your head and fighting with your ego and your body and leading from insecurity and frustration and not prioritizing your needs. So if this is you and this is resonating for you and you want to reach out and talk about one-on-one support, of course, you're welcome to email me at info@amberapproved.ca, or you can book a 30-minute body freedom call. Of course, if you want to blend some biz in there, if you're a female coach or business owner and you want support and guidance to help you balance growing your business whilst also honoring your health and well-being, you can do that as well. So you can go to amberapproved.ca, click schedule consultation, and it will guide you to do that. But I'm happy to connect if you want to do so. So the other thing is we wrapped up enrollment for Hormone Harmony, the 6-month group program, live. And then I had a couple people ask me, is there a self-study version of Hormone Harmony that I can just access at my own pace and just like absorb and learn? And so I thought, you know what, this is a great idea. And it's funny, my hubby mentioned, he's like, why don't you build a self-study with that program? Because there's so much great content if people just want to watch replays. And so what I did was I actually put together a second offering called Hormone Harmony, the self-study program. And so with the self-study program, essentially what it includes is last year's 6 90-minute sessions going through hormones 101, gut health, nervous system, self-sabotaging behaviors, ego, building body love, right? Diving deep into all the topics, all the root causes of what are fueling your hormone imbalances, as well as the bonus mind map session where you actually get to really break down and explore how you want to feel in different areas of your healing journey, your health, your well-being, your emotions, relationship with food, self-care, mindset, and more. And as well, it included our 2 beautiful videos that dive deep into how to regulate your blood sugar, plus all the worksheets that are included in the program. So if you want to come and self-study, essentially the way that it works is as soon as you sign up, you will get access to a beautiful document that literally has all the links to all the video replays, all the worksheets, the bonus videos, the mind maps, the blood sugar support balancer. And then you get to just absorb it and watch them as many times as you want, use the worksheets, take notes. So if you want to do self-study and learn at your own pace and just have access to all of this for life, you're so welcome to reach out. The program is going to be $444 USD. So one payment of that. And as soon as you sign up, you get free access, or delete that part. As soon as you sign up, then you will get access and you can dive into all of it. Now, if you want access to Hormone Harmony self-study, plus you want to have 1 hormone test, 1 45-minute follow-up session one-on-one with me, and 1 month of Boxer access, which is a voice text app to integrate the recommendations and have me for the first month while you're working through the program, then you can also access that, and it's $9.99 USD, one payment. So depending on what you feel called to do, there's the two options available. If you have questions or you want the link to sign up for Hormone Harmony Self-Study, just email me at info@amberapprove.ca with subject line self-study, and I will send you the payment link. I'll answer any questions that you have. And as soon as you do enroll, you will get access to everything. And if you're signing up for the test and the session, you will get a email from you within 24 hours to get some details from you and get that ball rolling. Okay. So I just wanted to share that. I'm really excited about it. Actually, to be honest with you, I am doing a whole changeover of the back ends of all my like online programs, masterclasses, just the programs I'm using. I'm having to use like 3 different programs, one for a checkout cart, one for hosting programs. Like MailChimp is honestly ridiculously expensive to just have email lists. And so I finally found one program that is going to do everything for me. And so now I'm going to be in the midst of like transferring everything over to that new backend. And once I do so, it's going to be great because I'm going to have a beautiful like one page where you can access self-study programs, free, right? Free resources and content, mini small like masterclasses, free and paid, as well as other little bundles of smaller programs. So you're going to have just such easy access to that. So that is coming, but holy moly, it just takes some time and energy to like start working through it and like shift it all over. So great learning. Maybe I'll do a biz episode and talk a bit more about it, but having a back end that just works easily, that can all be in the same place, is so huge. And I've really learned, and that's why it's so good to do your research before you like buy these programs. And it's all a learning opportunity, but that's what I'm up to behind the scenes. Like I'm getting ready to transfer it all over and make it really, really easy. So I'm excited. And one last thing, I have a very special guest coming on the show next week. I've actually mentioned her a couple times. She is a beautiful light, and she to me is just, I'm so grateful for her. And it's like a dream guest to have her on the show. And she's very tapped in intuitively and energetically and spiritually. And she's very tapped in intuitively, energetically, and spiritually. And so you're going to see who that is next week. She's hilarious. She has the most amazing sense of humor. I have just like learned a lot about myself and my true nature, right, as a soul here on this planet, assisting. And I think she's going to help you learn a lot about you too, and maybe a little bit about why you're really here. And it's very powerful. So tune in next week for that. It's going to be amazing, and you'll just have to wait and see who it is. So let's dive into today's topic. Thank you for listening. I just wanted to give some updates on some things, and I'm excited to dive in. So let's talk about this rebellion emotional eating trigger. So what is the rebellion emotional eating trigger? You may be going, I don't really know what that means. So the rebellion emotional eating trigger, I'm going to give some examples, but essentially, if you go on a diet and you restrict, or you have to be perfect on this diet to gain the results, and usually those results are, I want to lose weight, I don't have bloating anymore, I want my skin to clear, I want my inflammation to go down, I want to be free of these food sensitivities. So you go on a diet, you go on an elimination diet, you go on some kind of anti-inflammatory protocol, some kind of gut protocol that is requesting that you eliminate a lot of foods, right, to gain X result. That's essentially the point, is you follow something really rigid and restrictive to gain X result because you're so deeply desiring to heal. You just want to feel better. I get it. You just want to feel better. You want to overcome the bloating, the gut issues. You want to lose the weight. You want to feel good in your body. Maybe you're trying to gain control with food. And as we know, and as I talk about, it's not about having control with food when you have a healthy relationship with food. It's about actually learning to be mindful and build peace with it. But that's a whole other conversation. But I get it. You just want to feel good, and you don't want to be fighting with your body and with food. So what happens though with the rebellion emotional eating trigger is when you tell yourself, and or the healthcare practitioner that you're working with is telling you, you can't eat these foods. If you eat these foods, you're not going to gain the relief. You're not going to overcome the symptoms. You're not going to heal and bring your body into balance. You can't eat these foods. Otherwise, if you do, you won't lose weight. You won't gain the result, essentially. Right. And so what ends up happening is you're essentially like pressured or pushed or told this is the only option, then there's nothing else available. And if you fail, like you're never going to heal. And it's interesting because I had an experience before I started to like really dive into my healing and start my business. And I remember having horrible like gut issues, and I felt like I had some hormone stuff going on. And so I went and saw a lady who did a finger prick, and she looked at it under a microscope, and then she did iridology and looked into my eye. And essentially she's like, you have horrible candida and you have like this estrogen, progesterone issue, and you're not like, you need to take these 30 vitamins and follow this protocol to a T or it will never heal. And it just felt so disempowering. And I just felt small. It's like I shrunk in my chair. I'm like, oh my gosh, is this really the only answer? Like, I'm so desperate to feel better, but there's gotta be a better way. And I just remember being like, you need to buy all of this. And it just felt forceful, right? Like that's just not fun. Like there's a difference between like calling you out and knowing that like your ego may be blocking you from taking steps to going on a healing journey. And sometimes we need to like, that's why I voice like, what are the costs? Like how is it serving you to not change? But I don't do it because I want to force you to come and work with me. I do it because I know how the ego works. And sometimes lighting the fire is helpful, but it's not helpful to be like, if you don't, come and do this with me, you're never going to change. Like everyone has the power of choosing who and they want to work with and how they want to like do their process. So when this lady was like, yeah, this is the only way and you're never going to heal your hormones and gut and blah, 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 if you don't follow this protocol and cut out the foods and take these 30 supplements, I was just like, wow. So I bought a few of the supplements. Like at the time I had no money. I couldn't really afford to buy them all. So I took a few of them and she kept nudging me to buy more. And then I started and I felt like absolute garbage. And of course, then felt really frustrated and debilitated because I'm like, well, am I ever going to be able to heal if I can't follow this protocol? And part of that was me believing and trusting her and not necessarily knowing my own discernment if that doesn't feel right? You just, when you feel better, sometimes you lack discernment with, does this feel like the right approach for me? And so what ended up happening? Well, one day, I was working at my retail job and my boss came up to me. I'd actually sprained my ankle and I couldn't walk across the floor as fast to like help people. I was kind of limping along and she came up to me and she's like, I have to give you a write-up because you're walking too slow. And I'm just thinking, well, I literally have a ankle injury. Like I'm standing 8 hours a day. Like I need to make money. And like, you're writing me up because I can't walk fast enough. Right. Like it was frustrating. To me, that's not cool. So that, trigger came up of like frustration, anger, sadness. Now there's fear. Oh my gosh, like, am I going to get fired? Like I need a job. I need to make money. Like there's so much ego stuff that got triggered. And so of course, what did I start thinking about? Well, you know what? On the way home, I'm going to go stop at my favorite organic store. I'm going to get my ice cream. I'm going to get like, screw it. Like whatever. Today's a write-off. I'm going to eat whatever I want. I had a crappy day. I got written up. I don't want to deal with it. It's uncomfortable to deal with my insecurities. And so what happens? I'm going to rebel. I'm going to rebel from this protocol and this elimination restriction diet that I've been suggested to go on, right? Being told that this is the only way I'm going to be able to heal, which is not true. There's always many ways, and it's about you choosing the way and ways that feel best for you. And I often find restriction, elimination, and really invasive restrictive protocols do not work, and they fuel self-sabotage with food. Now, there may be very extreme exceptions where you have a very time-sensitive health issue or dis-ease or diagnosis that does require you to make some pretty fast changes for a temporary period of time. But as with any level of healing, if you're hurting yourself with food, that needs to be dealt with because it is fueling such a deep self-sabotage. It's negatively impacting your mental health, your gut health, your hormone health, inflammation. It suppresses your immune system. It fuels your cravings and your blood sugar imbalances. It lowers your vibration, right? It negatively ripples out and impacts your relationships, potentially your job, your career, your money flow, your business, just your overall happiness and well-being. It snuffs out your intuition. It does all these different things. So I went into the rebellion trigger because I'm like, this is too restrictive. I had a bad day. Now I'm going to go eat what I want to eat out of spite because this lady told me I can't and shouldn't, or I won't get better. So this rebellion trigger is really like if other people are telling us, oh, you can't eat these foods, you shouldn't eat these foods, these are bad, you need to eliminate these, or your inflammation won't drop, you need to cut out these 30 foods, or your food sensitivities won't go away, you need to cut out these 50 foods, or your candida won't go away, right? Like if that's what you're being told, or, oh, you need to cut out carbs because you have PCOS, we need to eat carbs. One of the reasons, and maybe like if you want to have me do a PCOS episode, I totally will, because I've had lots of clients that have had it. But one of the, just as an example, like root factors of PCOS, one is inflammation, and inflammation is amplifying high testosterone, high DHEA, insulin and blood sugar, insulin resistance, inflammation. Well, what's below the inflammation? Self-sabotage with food, binge eating, right? Emotional eating, making yourself the last priority on your list, people pleasing, perfection, overbooked schedules, not feeling good enough, fighting with your body, the weight battle. So as with any diagnosis, but I'll just use this one as an example, like we need to deal with the self-sabotage with food, because that is amplifying the inflammation, the physical symptoms, right? And it could be skin issues, it could be weight gain, it could be horrible bloating and gas, it could be heavy fatigue, low sex drive, right? Brain fog, like there's many things it could be. But if we don't address the self-sabotage with food, it keeps amplifying the physical symptoms, the current diagnoses that you may have, the emotional, mental block struggles, right? The unworthiness, the anger, the frustration, the hopelessness. Now, keeping in mind, you're going to decide when you are ready and done hurting and sabotaging, and when you're ready to move forward. And obviously, you're going to decide how you want to move forward on your journey. That's up to you to make that decision. I'm just saying I'm here with open arms for the women that feel resonant for me. And obviously, if there's a different path, you go, girl, and you go down that path that feels good for you. But don't leave out healing your relationship with food. It is, to me, the first and foremost, most important thing to address when we are, trying to heal on a deeper level, anything else, because it's literally one of the roots amplifying everything else. And what's always below self-sabotage with food is unworthiness, not feeling good enough, fear, insecurity, deep need for control, body hate, body dislike, and a wounded inner girl, inner child, boy. I know there's guys listening to this, which is great, but there's a wounded inner child that needs support. There's a rowdy, loud ego that is trying to tell you that nothing's wrong, and you keep you in denial that your emotional eating isn't that bad and it's not having a negative impact. Your ego is trying to convince you nothing's ever going to change. You're never going to heal. You're going to just have to deal with this for the rest of your life. Trying to convince you the restrictive elimination way is the only way, when it's not. You need to follow this person because they know what they're talking about, and they're very well probably do know what they're talking about. However, if that person is not well versed in self-sabotage with food, emotional eating, binging and purging and compulsive eating, stress eating, whatever you want to call it, and they put you on a restrictive protocol, they do not realize they're innocently potentially now going to cause you a lot of, havoc with your emotional eating, because restriction triggers rebellion with food and fuels emotional eating. Okay. So that's really what the rebellion trigger is. So another example is when I was working at a health clinic, and I discovered I had the worst candida that I had ever seen in my, in this lady's 12 years of practice. And she's like, you need to cut out like everything except green vegetables, animal proteins, and mold-free nuts. And I was so desperate to get the candida out because I knew it was fueling my cravings. So I tried to go on the restrictive protocol, and it was horrible. And I had already knew I was binge eating, but I didn't yet get that really restrictive protocols were going to continue to trigger me to self-sabotage with food. Because the other aspect of the rebellion trigger and restriction is that it triggers the all or nothing mentality. I'm either trying to be all in and perfect with this diet, right? With this elimination diet, this candida protocol, this anti-inflammatory protocol, this protocol to regulate my insulin, to help with PCOS or weight loss or whatever it is, right? You want to lose weight because you think it's going to fix all your problems, or you're going to finally be happy, right? But what we realize is it doesn't. And as a side note, I'm going to record a podcast coming up and talk about the shift in my body and all the deep nervous system work and releasing of fears and shame and guilt from a long time ago. And unexpectedly, my body is just continuing to shift and like release and feel safer. It's really cool. So I want to talk about that because it just goes to show you how vital the deeper emotional, energetic, nervous system work is, the ego work, the work on the self-sabotage, the people-pleasing, the releasing the emotions, and the being vulnerable. It's so powerful. And I would say it's 60 to 70% of why the body hangs on to protection and why the nervous system stays overwhelmed. But then we keep choosing, right? The quick fixes, the diets, the elimination protocols. We think that okay, well, if I just know my hormone levels and I take the supplements, that will fix everything. That's just one component. We must be willing to deal with the self-sabotage with food. And like I said, I know it's up to you and you're going to navigate your journey the way you see fit. And after 10 years of working with over 1,600 women, I can tell you, we see the best results when we are willing to really do the deeper work and we support the digestive health while we're supporting the emotional eating, self-sabotage. We support your hormones while you overcome the binge eating and the self-sabotage. The beauty is you get to gain relief from both at the same time rather than just like one thing. And then you don't gain relief because you're not addressing the root cause first. So of course, when I'm doing this restrictive candida protocol, which do not do this, please do not do this. Do not do this. This does not work. It's going to trigger you. I'm just sharing the example. Again, another learning opportunity that the universe put me through to be like, do not do this with your clients, which I would never do. But then I had a bad day at work or I had some triggers come up and then I'm like, well, screw it. I'm going to go get whatever I want. I don't care. This isn't going to work. I want sugar. I want the carbs. I'm denying myself of like even fruit. So of course I wanted to eat it all because it's like when you're told you can't have something, your ego comes in and goes, oh, I want it even more now. And that's the rebellious nature of this emotional eating trigger. The ego. So how the ego fuels the rebellion trigger is it comes in and convinces you and justifies, well, you know, you ate one little thing off this protocol, so now it's not going to work. You've ruined it because you couldn't be perfect. So screw it. You might as well go and eat all the chocolate and all the ice cream and all the dairy and all the sugar and all the fast food that you're not, supposed to have. The justification of, oh, well, you've done good this week. You should reward yourself and go and eat that. Right? Oh, well, you are in this protocol and your bloating is not getting better. Your energy is not improving with your hormone protocol. Your symptoms aren't getting better. So this must not be working. Screw it. Let's just go eat whatever we want because obviously like this isn't working. So all of that self-talk, that mind chatter is the ego. And it's not that the protocol is not working. It's that any form of restriction, elimination, diets, eating styles that require us to cut out a lot of things or that tell us we can't, we shouldn't, it's bad, trigger the ego and trigger the rebellion and trigger the all or nothing mentality. Okay. Because what do we want to do when we are emotionally upset and you don't want to feel your emotions or it feels uncomfortable feeling your emotions or you had a bad day or you're getting down and hard on yourself because you're bloated again today or you got on the scale and you don't like the number that you see. You want a dopamine hit. You want pleasure. You want relief. You want to numb out and check out from how busy and chaotic your day, your week, your month has been. So what do? What's the easiest, fastest thing to do to get a dopamine hit? Eat, right? So this is why it's so easy because the ego convinces you, oh, well, it would be great. Remember the last time you ate that? Like, it'll be so good. You're going to feel so good. And it's fast. And we usually have something at home or the office or can stop in somewhere really fast to get the food and get that dopamine high. So the more we restrict, the more likely the pendulum swings the other way. And then we fall off deep into some form of, emotional eating or full loss of control into binge eating or full-blown food addiction. So I actually don't suggest if you're struggling with self-sabotage with food or just in general, because it can feel emotionally overwhelming to all of a sudden be told you have to go gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, peanut-free, egg-free, soy-free, nut, like all at the same time, but then not be given any guidance. But this is the only way you're going to balance your immune system or lower your inflammation. Instead, what I think is way more powerful is going, okay, let's see why you have all these sensitivities in the first place. Are you struggling with binge eating? Do you have a history of emotional eating? Is your cortisol high? Do you have a gut flora imbalance? Like, what's the state of your immunity? What are your stress levels? What's your behaviors or mindset, your thoughts? Like, what's your relationship like with your body, with food, body image, right? Because we want to look at what's going on with your nervous system, with your immune system, your gut, and your behaviors and mindset, right? So this is where looking at self-sabotage with food is so important because I find 9 times out of 10, most of my clients that have lots of food sensitivities have high cortisol and gut flora issues, and just putting you on an elimination diet fuels the self-sabotage with food, makes the cortisol higher and fuels the gut flora issues. And then you just don't feel better. So instead of elimination diets, what is more powerful is for us to potentially see what you're sensitive to, acknowledge that, maybe give you a couple alternatives so you can still enjoy, right? Like if you want to have cheese, maybe there's some good, like I love the goat mozzarella and I don't get bloated or gassy. And it tastes just as good. So why wouldn't I have an alternative versus eating something that's making me feel ick? But in some circumstances, you're not sensitive to the food. It's that your immune system's so overwhelmed and it's giving you all these high readings. So if we can regulate your nervous system, if we can help you heal your relationship with food and gain freedom from the self-sabotage, right, and deal with this rebellion trigger without restriction, it makes it so much easier to bring your physical body, your emotional body, your energetic body into a state of well-being without elimination, without telling you this is the only way and there's no other way, right? However, I'm pretty confident in saying it's going to be really hard for you to fully heal and balance and gain relief from your symptoms if you're hurting yourself with food and you're in the food and body battle, because it fuels so much inflammation, throws your blood sugar so off. It's such an emotional roller coaster. You're lowering your vibration all the time. You're fighting with your body. You're fighting with your mind, right? And it's really hard when the body's in that heightened state of stress and inflammation and overwhelm to like fully regulate. So of course you're going to navigate your journey the way you see fit. And I really encourage you to address the self-sabotage with food. Reach out. We can have a conversation about support, right? Like there's different things that I can, share with you as far as what journeys look like. But think of what it could feel like if this was the year that you actually address the root issues of your bloating without restriction and elimination, and actually via dealing with your ego and these triggers and clearing the triggers out. I gained massive relief from my bloating and gut issues when I healed my relationship with food and my body and got my cortisol down. That played a huge role too, but it wasn't the gut protocols. All these supplements and gut protocols were making my digestion worse because I was trying to restrict and be perfect. And then I get triggered and rebel and go, screw it, I don't care. I don't want to do this. This isn't working. Now I'm going to eat all those foods, right? The rebellion. Oh, and I already had candy. So screw the rest of the day or the week. I'm going to just eat whatever I want. I was restricting. I was trying to do this. It doesn't work. I wasted money on that protocol. I wasted money on the supplements. Now I just want to like suppress, numb out, and like get my dopamine hit, right? So the ego convinces you, helps you justify why reward is a good idea, convinces you that nothing is going to work, and then convinces you it's your fault, that you're weak, you don't have willpower, and that you didn't try hard enough on the restrictive protocol, which is also false. It's not your fault. It's not your fault that food, so much of the processed food that we binge on or emotionally eat on is like literally so addictive and designed to be addictive to keep you hooked on it. It's not your fault that this all or nothing mentality has been so programmed into you. It's not your fault you haven't been taught about your ego. It's not your fault that you can't follow a restrictive protocol that like 90% of the population can't follow, because it's really invasive and hard and overwhelming for most people. It's not because you're weak or you don't have willpower because you need to try harder. It is because it is not like realistic for most people, to be honest. And there is a deeper level of things for you to look at exploring. But a lot of women and people will choose, oh, well, I'll just do this elimination diet, I'll do this protocol, because it's surface level and it's very like superficial in the sense of like, you don't have to do anything emotional. You just eat these foods, don't eat these foods, take these vitamins. What it's lacking is the deeper work. But a lot of us will go, oh my God, I'll just try that first because it's way too uncomfortable to think about facing myself, facing my self-sabotage with food, learning how to feel my emotions, getting uncomfortable. Oh my God, who would I be without food? I don't want to even think about that. I don't know what my identity would look like. I don't want change. I don't want my life to change. It's like, you don't want your life to change for the better. You don't want to feel better, right? And address this from the root. But the ego comes in and convinces you and gives you all the reasons, stories, and excuses why you should do nothing, but just keep doing these little superficial protocols that are literally amplifying and fueling your self-sabotage with food, and are one of the reasons why you keep falling back into it. Because restriction and elimination and heavy, like you shouldn't, you can't, fuels the ego, and the ego is like, of course I can do whatever I want. And if you catch that ego on the right day, it will put you in the rebellion and convince you that it's a good idea to just go and hurt yourself with food again. And then it will have you beat yourself until you see you can't do anything. You suck, you're weak, you're not good enough, you're never going to change, you're never going to heal, you have bad luck, blah, blah, blah. And that's all BS. But it's so important to understand the ego. And actually, one of the reasons the women that come to me gain so much relief and traction is because they're ready to deal with their ego. They're ready to learn about it, build awareness about it, understand how it triggers the self-sabotage, right? And how it's holding them back from a deeper level of healing. And, right, it takes going deeper than just a surface level protocol. So important. This is so much more than an elimination diet. And you can gain the results and improve your insulin, reduce your inflammation, regulate your hormones, improve your digestion without extreme restriction. But if there's foods you're eating that you know are causing bloating, then we can look at alternatives as well. And we go slow and do it at a pace that feels good for you. But we have to be willing to deal with the ego, and we have to take time to help you build awareness around your unique set of emotional eating or binge eating triggers, because everyone has different ones. Some have the same. But if you've been going to different, like I've had clients come with like, and I have utmost respect for all kinds of healthcare practitioners, whether you're a naturopath or an integrative medicine doctor or a doctor, whoever you are. I'm not faulting you, but if we don't understand self-sabotage with food, we're just going to give people the protocols that we've been taught based on their test results and the assessment. I get it. You're just giving people what you know. However, I've just talked to so many women who have gone through that and felt like, oh my gosh, this feels overwhelming. It feels intimidating and it doesn't feel attainable. And then they're being so hard on themselves because nothing is changing and it's actually triggering the self-sabotage. So this is where I think it's so important we take a balanced approach and that we really address the relationship with food while gently supporting you to gain relief of your symptoms. And that's what I do with my clients, and they start to gain relief because we're not going extreme one way, and we're starting by addressing the root causes instead of, oh, well, you have gut issues, let's like put you on a gut protocol. It doesn't work when you're hurting yourself with food. It overwhelms your system. I know I've said that a million times, but I can't like repeat it enough what a negative impact it has. It's different if you have no self-sabotage with food, and for you, you're one of that like 5 to 10% that has no problem like going into something like that. Some people it's no problem. So this isn't for you. This is for the majority who are in the opposite. So that rebellion trigger, right? And it doesn't necessarily it's not just with food. It could be with wine. Well, I had a crappy day. Screw it. I don't care. I said I was going to do dry March. Screw it. Whatever. I need the glass of wine. I know I said I wasn't going to spend the money on the clothes this week, but like I need a break and I deserve a reward. Like who cares? I'm going to do this. Like it's the same with that, right? It doesn't matter your choice of like sabotage that you're choosing. It's the same habit and pattern with the rebellion. But it really goes into that I don't care mentality. I deserve this. I want reward, justification, why it's a good idea, rather than actually dealing with the emotional discomfort and hurt that you're feeling, right? So let's talk about ways to start building awareness around this, because the first step is awareness. So do you feel like you're struggling with the rebellion emotional eating trigger? And I would love to hear from you. So DM me on Instagram at Amber Romaniuk. Send me an email like, holy crap, I'm dealing with this. I would just love to hear from you and hear like what you got from this episode, because it helps me understand, and create more content on this podcast and just across the board that is going to be beneficial for you. But do you have this trigger? Do you suspect you have this trigger? Start building awareness, right? Now, part of the awareness is starting to recognize what the ego rebellion voice sounds like. So it's you out of your power. It's you shaming yourself, being hard on yourself, justifying why you deserve reward after having a bad day, right? Justifying like, oh, you're weak. You don't have willpower. You need to try harder. You failed on that elimination diet. You spent that money on those supplements and it didn't work. You need to try harder because this is the only thing that's going to work. And this person said it's the only thing that's going to work. That's all ego chatter and that rebellion, right? And screw it. I've had the bad day. I'm going to eat whatever I want. I don't care. I'm going to eat all the things I haven't been allowing because life's too short and it's not working anyway, and I need a break. Like that's all like, and it may sound a bit different for you, but just so you have some examples of like the part of your voice to start listening to, and it's going to convince you that you should emotionally eat, that you should binge, that you should self-sabotage, that I don't care all or nothing mentality, that reward, that justification, right? So starting to build awareness. Do you feel like you're on a restrictive protocol right now? Have you been put on one, an elimination diet, some kind of diet, some kind of eating style to help balance like inflammation or your bloating, or for hormones, or you have a specific diagnosis? Because if you have received something like I've talked about today, like PCOS or certain gut issues, and you're feeling overwhelmed and disempowered and intimidated by the protocol, And that's right now making you want to eat all the foods you're quote unquote not supposed to have, I highly encourage you to be willing to either talk to the person you're working with and express how it's making you feel to see if they can make adjustments. And if they're like a no-go, stubborn, like this is the only way, I would highly encourage you to get different support. And I get it. You may have already spent money and invested time into this, but sometimes we have to go through a few people before we learn our lessons and understand what doesn't work for us and take a different approach. Or maybe you're just starting with this. You're like, oh, thank God I heard this. And now I'm not going to do that. And I'm going to, take the steps to deal with my relationship with food and my ego. And you get to have the best of all the worlds. You can heal your relationship with food, deal with your ego, and work on balancing whatever unique symptoms and health things are going on for you in a more gentle way to gain the same relief without the restriction, the elimination, and the intensity. I find that usually doesn't work for the women that are coming out to work with me, and that's just made everything worse. If you're one of the few that works for, amazing. I'm not like touting you, but this is an epidemic in itself, and I see it all too often. So, start with that awareness. Listen to the voice in the mind, see what it feels like in the body. Start journaling about it, right? I always drop lots of great questions in these podcasts. Write them down and spend some time in your self-care routine reflecting, right? And from here, you get to decide if you ditch the restrictive protocol and you say, you know what, I want to address this and I want to find someone or who, like maybe it's more than one person, right, that can help me with XYZ without restriction. And you state that right away when you're meeting with this person right off the bat to make sure that they are in support of taking a more balanced approach. Now, one thing that I love about how I help my clients is that we do all of this. We can support your hormones. We can work on your gut, right? Whilst we are regulating and clearing out the rebellion trigger, working on your ego mindset. And we do it in a gentle pace and at a rate that feels good for you so that you feel comfortable and you don't feel intimidated and you don't feel overwhelmed. It's so important that you feel safe and comfortable and that the work that we're doing is not triggering you to self-sabotage. Yes, as you start on this journey, you may self-sabotage with food. You're going to binge, you're going to emotionally eat because it takes time to build awareness around the different things that are triggering you to sabotage. However, we don't want like these restrictive protocols to come along and like fuel a problem and make it worse when you just want to try and make it better. So if you want to reach out and have a conversation around body freedom, food freedom, whatever it is, and you want to start on the journey and work together, you know what to do, amberproof.ca, click schedule a consultation, or you can click the link in the show notes. And I'm happy to have a conversation with you and explore the journey together. This is life changing. Listen to some of the episodes that I have with past clients about their journeys. There's all kinds. If you want to hear more or read success stories on the website, it's just a blessing to see the miracles and the healing and the freedom and the confidence and the empowerment that have been built through, women mustering up their courage to do the deeper work. And if you want to do a bit of self-study and get a feel for me, you can definitely start with the hormone program or something else. I have other small things that I'm happy to share with you, depending on what you're interested in. So it's there if you want it. And the podcast is a great resource as well as my Instagram feed. I'm always dropping little tips and tricks and, reels and posts there. So make sure you're following me. It's my name, Amber Romaniuk. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. The show notes can be found at amberapproved.ca/podcast/403. If you have questions or you want to inquire about one-on-one or you want into the Hormone Harmony Self-Study Program, email me at info@amberproof.ca. You can also go to amberproof.ca, take the free emotional eating quiz, and of course, book your consultation there. And I'm cheering you on. I'm sending you so much love. There's no better time than the present to take action on your journey to food and body freedom, confidence, the ease, the peace, right? Your health, your well-being. So take action now. Have a beautiful day, a great week. And I will look so forward to sharing my special guest episode with all of you beautiful souls next Sunday.